Hey guys, how you doing in the iiRcade community? Thanks for supporting that last video. Where'd you all come from? Did you see a tweet or something? Like, that was insane, and some of the best comments I've ever seen on a YouTube video. So I thought we'd have some fun today in the video. I know there's games I want to see on the system. I'm sure there's games you guys want to see on the system. So comment down below. Tell me what some of the games you want to see the most. But I'm going to do, I know, the quintessential YouTube thing of top 10, but these are my top 10 most wanted iiRcade games that I want on the system. I kind of picked stuff that iiRcade, like, publishers that iiRcade's already working with, and stuff that'll translate over to the controls fairly well. So I think you guys might be surprised what my number one is. Probably a lot of you have never heard of it, but don't be surprised, there's going to be a lot of Sega stuff on here too. Okay, so for number 10, Joe and Mac. Game by Data East, came out in 1991, platformer. It's pretty famous. Joe Mac Returns being the sequel, coming out a little bit later. I'm kind of curious as to why it's not on the platform yet. I think it's a matter of time. However, whatever the deals were for Joe Mac, or whatever's being made right now, I'm not privy to that, but I think Joe Mac's a pretty important one, and also Joe Mac Returns should also be on the iiRcade, so I'd love to see those. Alright, this next one, I'm actually surprised it's also not on the system. It's a Sega game, came out in April of 1982, and if you guessed it, Zaxxon. It was the isometric shooter with like the vertical plane where you could go up and down and shoot different targets and stuff. Very interesting for the time that nobody was really doing anything quite like that. I noticed that Sega just seemed to like to take a lot of concepts and move them into like an isometric plane. Similar Congo Bongo, essentially their answer to Donkey Kong. I actually prefer Congo Bongo a little bit more than Donkey Kong. I think it's a cooler game. So I was really glad to see it on the iiRcade, and I would love to see Zaxxon on the iiRcade as well. So that's another one. That's my number 9 pick. Alright, for my number 8, released in May of 1984, Flicky. Flicky is this awesome sort of pseudo-platformer game where you're collecting birds and you're trying to lead them to an exit as a cat's constantly chasing you and there's obstacles. This game I like a whole lot. I have it for Sega Genesis. I was kind of surprised it came out for Sega Genesis, and I would love to see this one. Technically it's a Sega game. Maybe the problem with getting this one over here is in the United States it was released by Bally Midway, but it is a Sega game, and that's one I would love to see come over here to the iiRcade. Alright, for number 7, this one kind of had some problems with, some people like it, some people hate it. I like it. It was made by the Shinobi team at Sega, and it is Altered Beast, released in June of 1988, and I honestly think the arcade one is actually really good. I like it. I think the Sega Genesis one had a really bad port, and that's what a lot of people remember. Maybe that's where the stigma comes from, but love this arcade game. Very creative. Love turning into the different beasts and stuff. A little bit short, but that's kind of what that team does. Like, Shinobi wasn't inherently long. I think Shadow Dancer was a little bit longer, but yeah, absolutely love Altered Beast, and I would love to see it on the system. Alright, so for number 6, this one was released in 1992 and was absolutely stunning, and there isn't necessarily an exact port of it over to any home consoles, and that is Golden Axe, Return of Death Adder. There's an arcade 1-up machine of it, like completely recreation of it, and I think that system and that game looks great, but if we can, I'd love to see it on here, or possibly the first Golden Axe. Golden Axe 1, Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder, both great games, but I do prefer Revenge of Death Adder over the first Golden Axe. Okay, for number 5, there is technically no working relationship as far as I know right now with this developer, but they've ported this to other systems, and I think this would be a great place for it to live. And it came out in December of 2001 in Japan only, and that is Ikaruga. Ikaruga is one of the best shooters out there. If you guys have ever played it, you switch polarities between 2 different colored types of bullets. It's a bullet hell, and it's got that very interesting mechanic of just switching polarity from one to the other. Ever since this game came out, just kind of had this cult following, always kind of built up around it, and eventually found itself ported to the US. People were importing it for the Dreamcast like crazy. This game should and needs to be on the iiRcade, and there's already ports to it for the Switch and stuff, so we should be able to get that running on here, right? I mean, it's an assumption, but I'd like to see it. Alright, if there's one thing you learn about me, it's that I love ninja games, and this one came out in 1988 by Irem, and I'm wondering why it's not on here, and that's Ninja Spirit. Ninja Spirit got kind of popular for being on the TurboGrafx 16. It's as popularity for TurboGrafx 16 came up, a lot of people were like, hey, you need to check out this version or this Ninja game. I'd never seen it in arcade myself, but turns out it was an arcade game first, and that game is so much fun with the different weapons and verticality and things like that. Great action platformer, and everybody should check it out. So Ninja Spirit is number 4. Alright, for number 3, released in November of 1987, Shinobi. I mean, we already have Shadow Dancer, which is the sequel, and the sequel is great, and I think the sequel is actually better, but the reason I want Shinobi is I have a real soft spot for it. There's this place in the town that I grew up called Bernowski's Pizza. It was this pizza place that was like in the basement of a bank. I know, weird place. And they had like a little games room down there that you could just kind of, like a little table that you could eat around and play a couple games, and the 2 games that they had was Shinobi and Adam's Family Pinball. And I have so many hours playing both of those, and including with my brother, so many great memories. And I've gotten so good with Shinobi over the years, so I'd love to see Shinobi on the iiRcade. For number 2, one of my favorite games released in January of 1995, and that is Virtua Fighter 2. I think we've got enough horsepower on this thing to bring Virtua Fighter 2 to life. I don't know, even if it's like a direct port to it or something. It's kind of a pipe dream in this one. I don't know what it would take to get that to happen, or any of the Virtua Fighter games, but Virtua Fighter 2 is where the series really started to get its legs. Like, the first one was a little bit janky. I think they fixed some of the movement and stuff in Remix, but 2 was just, it was great all around. And had a great port to Sega Saturn. I played countless hours on Sega Saturn with my friends. Virtua Fighter 2 is just like one of those golden memories, and I would like to relive and play games with. Also, the control scheme on this thing with the rows of 3 buttons, perfect for Virtua Fighter. I mean, come on, let's do that.
Stand by ready. Good luck.
Okay, in the next game, I told you guys you weren't going to be able to guess it because it's so off the cuff, but it's a game that I have a lot of fond memories with, and it was taken away too early for me, so I've always had this, like, need to want to play it again. And there were ports of it, and there were ports to the Mega CD and to the Saturn in Japan, but both of them were kind of lacking from the original hardware. It came out in '89 in Japan, '90 in the US, and that is Nightstriker from Taito. If you haven't played it, it's a sort of like super scalar style game, similar to like Space Harrier, almost like the control stick on Space Harrier and this were almost identical to each other. But instead of you being a character flying around with a gun, you are a neo-police trying to stop I think it was like a scientist and his daughter from being kidnapped. The story didn't matter. It was just stupid fun, and you were like in this Blade Runner-esque kind of like hovercraft car that sometimes could land on the streets and then mostly would fly around. And same kind of gameplay. You're just like shooting and blowing like stuff up like helicopters, other flying things, vehicles on the street, barricades, all kinds of stuff. And the music in that game is just, it gets you so pumped up, and the game is so awesome. Like there was the only thing I can find is there's like a playthrough online. I don't have it. I don't know where you can get it anywhere, but Nightstriker was the bomb, and I think it was a very good game that was underrated. So if you like Space Harrier at all, at all, you gotta give Nightstriker a try, because that game is just, it's so good. I love it. And I love like how it has like areas where it pairs off like Outrun and stuff like that. It's so many good things in this game. Alright guys, simple video for today. That was my 10 most wanted iiRcade games, or hopeful games I want on the iiRcade that hopefully we could see. And I try to keep it as realistic as possible, like stuff that maybe there's already like versions of it out there, or developers that iiRcade's already working with. Trust me, there's a lot more stuff I'd love to see on this thing, but those are the ones. And oh man, come on Nightstriker, come on, find your way on there. Like, there's a lot of other, like, off-the-wall stuff on there, and I've really enjoyed it, so please, you gotta let these people play Nightstriker, okay? Guys, thanks so much for the support in the video. I hope to see you in future videos. More stuff coming up with arcade, iiRcade, and arcade stuff. I'm not gonna say too much, but maybe pinball. Anyways, see you guys in the future. Later. Bye.